All right, guys, in this video, we're going to talk about this growing epidemic of lack of trust that's going on in the high ticket space. And if you've been running ads or doing organic and trying to grow in your high ticket business, and it's just getting harder and harder and harder, I want to talk to you about why, and I want to talk to you about what to do with it. And over the next few minutes, we're going to cover a topic that I think is going to help you wrap your head around what's going on, but also it might bum you out a little bit because it is going to require more work. My name is Sturtevant. I have been in the high ticket coaching space now for the last 10 years. I've been in the digital marketing space for over 20 years. I've worked with huge brands, helped them go from $2 million to $100 million in revenue. I've been the CMO and COO behind some of the biggest high ticket coaching brands around the market. So I'm coming from an area of expertise here. For the last few years, I've been running a fractional CMO business and been behind the scenes with a lot of coaches and consultants. And there's one thing that I have seen that is true amongst most people. You have to work a lot harder to make a sale than you used to a long time ago, or even just a few years ago, a couple of years ago. And it requires a massive pivot. And I want to show you what's going on. So back in the day, this was the old high ticket buyer journey. Okay. You went from A to B. So someone would opt in on your opt-in page and they would watch a VSL, or you would send them a DM and they would respond within an hour at most. And you would have a conversation with them. And before you know it, they would book a call. That is the old high ticket buyer journey. It does not work that way, especially with cold traffic. Warm traffic, it might still work that way if you've got a really good social following and you've done a really good job of building trust. Sure, it absolutely might still work that way. But for most people, especially those of you who are running ads, paid ads into cold traffic, you are going to have a difficult time with that old process. Why? And it's because what's happening is people are moving to this. So it looks now like this in the new buyer journey. That's a lot more complicated. So what's happening here? Well, what's happening is a lead is coming in and they need multiple touch points. Okay. So maybe they see your ad and then they come in and maybe they get an email and then they get distracted and maybe they get a text message and now they're going to need to jump on a webinar at some point and they're going to need to be in your community and they're going to need to get a retargeting ad and another retargeting ad and then they're going to need to get a DM. This is why it's taking so much longer in the space now, because people are getting bombarded with so much information. They're getting pulled in so many different directions. They're being distracted, and you don't really stand out all that much anymore because there's so many different options. So I hate to break it to you, but inevitably what's happened is you've become a little bit of a commodity. And that means you've got to now have to compete on price and features and all of that stuff. Does that mean you can't make money in high ticket? No, you absolutely can. What it means though, is that you have to work a little bit harder. See, I started mentioning some of the touch points here on my iPad, and some of you were thinking, well, gosh, maybe I'm not doing all of that. And that's the reality, is most people aren't. Most people need to be creating what I call this elite marketing ecosystem. And if you want more information about this, down below this video, let me know. I will get you more information on this. I've got a whole training and a whole ecosystem that, or walk you through this entire ecosystem. But if you zoom in here, what we're talking about is putting people through what I call a dual nurture ecosystem. So you've got sort of an automation engine, but then you also have a human engine that's a part of this. And all of this is designed to create those multiple touch points that I was talking about on this iPad here. If you look at what's happening, most people need multiple looks, multiple exposures to your information before they make a decision to buy and work with you. I call this the 10-15-5 protocol. And what does this mean? This means 10 hours of consumption of your information, 15 touch points on 5 platforms. Now you might be thinking, looking at that and going, oh my gosh, okay, I've got to get people to consume 10 hours of content and information. Yeah, you do, because they don't trust you. They don't know who you are. Now, how do you do that? That is the question. And that's where the marketing ecosystem comes into play. So let's talk about that for a second. So let's say, for example, you have a top of funnel paid traffic strategy and you're running people to a lead magnet. Okay, that's fine. That's a touch point that offers an opportunity for some consumption. Maybe that lead magnet brings people into a quiz or something that allows them to get exposed to further information. Maybe it's a course. Maybe you have a low ticket product that's bringing people into a course. So now you've got course content and you're dropping content and information on there. There's a touch point as well. Okay, so we've already had a couple of touch points. They saw an ad, they got a lead magnet, magnet. That's another touch point. Now they're starting to consume information. Then maybe they get an email that's driving them back to another lead magnet. Now, this is where a lot of people drop the ball. They think, well, I only have one lead magnet, I only need one. And I'm not talking about a PDF. I'm talking about, calculators and resources and Google Sheets and trackers. And it doesn't matter what industry or niche that you're in, you could have those for all of them. Relationships, weight loss, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. But your ads, your middle of funnel strategy should be bringing people back to other sources of information, which allow them to then come back into your automation engine and consume more content. And you should have a VSL, and there should be an automated webinar, and then there should be some sort of way that they can chat with you and have automation happen. And you're touching and you're driving people back to even more information and resources. The way that I like to do this is with retargeting ads. And with retargeting ads, what you can do is you can just, once someone comes into your ecosystem, you can constantly drive them back to that information over and over and over again. And then there's the human side to it. Okay, where you can get them on, plugged into your community. This is a big one. It doesn't have to be a school community. Could be Circle, could be, Go High Levels community, could be Mighty Networks, could be a Facebook group. Doesn't matter. As long as they can come in and they can experience additional content with other touch points and exposures to people and information. Okay, live events is another one. This is a great way to condense your touch points with your hours of consumption, and you're driving people into that resource. Live two steps or re-offers. You're messaging out to your list and you're saying, hey, I've got this XYZ tool. If you want it, let me know. And then you're driving people back to yet another lead magnet. And these resources, these things that you're providing to people, these constant lead magnets, these touch points, all that this is doing is just building that trust. Because if you're not building that trust, what ends up happening is you're losing out on sales. And I'll go back over to the 10-15-5 protocol here on my iPad. If you think about this, does everyone need 10 hours of consumption and 15 different touch points on 5 different platforms? No, not everyone does. In fact, Google, I believe, did a study years ago about an average how many times a consumer needs to be touched and how much time they need to take to research your brand. And it was more of an e-commerce focus. And I think theirs was 5 hours of consumption with 7 different touch points on 3 different platforms. And that makes a lot of sense for a $50 shirt or a $100 pair of shoes, right? Where you're retargeting someone based on an e-commerce type of purchase. High ticket, though, is a whole other beast, right? You've got to be driving people to a lot more content and untouching them in different ways because they're getting distracted in so many places. And you've got to be doing it on multiple platforms. This is why retargeting is so important with ads, because it gives you the ability to be kind of omnipresent. And this is a mistake that a lot of people are making in the high ticket space is, I hate to say it, I'm sorry, guys, they're lazy. A lot of the founders that I have done consultations for, they are operating as if it was 2020 because that's when they had their explosion and everything was easy and there was very little competition and everybody was hungry for and thirsty for information. Those days are over. And if you want your high ticket coaching, consulting, whatever to succeed, you've got to get out and reach people. You got to fight for those people, right? Or you got to come up with an offer that is just so blue ocean that no one else is competing in this space. And that is the secret. So this 10-15-5 protocol is the way that I would operate if I were you. And I would use that elite marketing ecosystem concept to make sure that you're plugging all the holes and giving people an opportunity to consume those 10 hours and to get those 15 different touch points and to put them through those 5 different platforms. And before you know it, if you actually take the time and put the energy in to build that ecosystem, you're going to find out that you're able to expose those people to those 10-15-5s a lot faster. And yes, it means the buying journey, the buying cycle is a lot longer. Just go back to this illustration that I put here on my iPad. Look at that. I mean, you might think I'm exaggerating. I'm not. This is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 touch points. There's a lot more that, you can put, the live event back in there, do a webinar. It starts to add up. You got your community touch point over here, right? This is what it looks like nowadays for those people who are in that 3 to 15, 20K space with their pricing. And that's what it takes to build a high ticket business. Here we are, middle of 2026. Hopefully this was useful to you. I'd love to hear your feedback, what kind of experiences you're having with your ecosystem, what you're struggling with. Maybe I can help. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.